What's going on, everybody? Jeremy with Detroit Tech. I have been obsessed with keyboards recently, and when I saw this keyboard on Amazon, I figured it was a perfect time to dip my toe into the water of the 60% keyboard space. This is the GK61. Let's dive in. Full disclosure, I bought this for the company, never reached out to us, and if you happen to like the keyboard and want to purchase it, I'll leave a link in the description below so you can help support the channel. So what made me purchase this particular keyboard? Well, I was mostly just kind of looking around on Amazon, saw it and the price, and the fact that the switches were hot swappable. Oh, and the fact that it's 60%, and I've never had a 60% keyboard before, and I always wondered what the draw was for other people. That played a factor too. So let's take a tour. The build quality is pretty okay. There's basically no flex to the keyboard, even though it is really made of plastic. It's not particularly like high quality feeling plastic, but you know, at the price we paid, I can't really complain too much. It weighs in at 548 grams, and compare that to the 1,031 grams of my drop control keyboard, it definitely feels pretty light. It does have USB-C, which is really nice, though the port is only on one side, so it doesn't really allow that much flexibility for aesthetics. The cable is braided, 1.5 meters long, and it does come with a keycap puller and switch puller, though the keycap puller is pretty much garbage, as it's a combination of too short and too thick to be very effective. The keycaps are ABS plastic, so they will definitely get shiny as you use the board. However, Amazon did have some PBT keycap sets that would fit this board for relatively inexpensive, so you can take a look at those too. The back plate behind the keys is white, which reflects the RGB pretty well, and I think they handled this 60% layout pretty well also, and I'd really love to hear how you feel about this layout too, so just kind of leave a comment down below. For the most part, everything I need is here. The function key on the bottom right allows for access to the what I call the second level of controls, and this is a plus and minus for me on this keyboard. The legend on the keycaps is mostly clear with what you get when you hit the function key, but it does look overall a little bit busy. And while the keycaps have a see-through portion for the LEDs, the secondary functions are painted or stickers, so they'll definitely eventually wear off if you use it long enough. And if you get new keycaps, of course, you'll lose these secondary function reminders. The manual is helpful-ish here. It does have general instructions for using the function key, but there are definitely some English mistakes. As you can see here, you have all the page up, page down, home, end buttons, and the arrow keys are relegated to a secondary function as well. This is generally fine for me when I'm playing a game, but when I'm doing something, you know, like writing this script, I often find myself want to hit the keys to go up or down, correct some little grammatical error. It definitely adds a bit of a learning curve for this particular layout. However, it does have full-size shift key on the right side and both control and alt buttons, again on the right side, plus a menu button for pulling up like a right-click menu. So except for, you know, the arrow keys and the special keys like home and end, the learning curve isn't quite as high as it could be, which is nice. On the right side, you'll also see the buttons to control the all-important RGB. It has the basic lighting presets pretty much baked in, breathing through the colors, rainbow waves, the windmill or the swirly one, people call it different things. And then there's green, just green. I mean, okay, just green, it's weird. They also have a couple of like reactive presets they call key lighting, Aurora, and Ripple. They're controlled by the function key and the buttons on the upper right. This one goes through the reactive presets and this cycles through the regular ones. You have brightness control and speed control as well. And there's, I think they said 21 or 27 different brightness levels, so very customizable that way. You can customize lighting and program some macros, but that requires the software. And when I searched for it, the Reddit post that I found took me to a site that was mostly in Chinese, so I didn't really feel like diving into that. Besides, I usually just use Rainbow Vomit on my drop control keyboard, so I'm pretty much fine with this. The QWER keys also have a secondary function. The Q key takes you to online mode, which after messing with it for a while means nothing to me still. The other keys go through a couple of different modes, basically. Each mode has different lighting and the keys that are lit up are bound to that secondary function. You can see mode 1 keeps the arrow keys lit up as red. They will now act as the normal arrow keys without having to hit the function button. Mode 2 lights up the F keys so you can sit there and refresh Reddit without any extraneous key presses. And if you need home and insert, etc. buttons, Mode 3 is the one that you need to go to. It may not be the most elegant solution, but I appreciate them mashing all this functionality into such a small form factor. Pulling those keycaps off shows the white backplate and the Gatoron optical switches. I chose red because I like the linear feel, and with an actuation of 1.5 millimeters and an actuation force of 45 grams, I figured it might be a good gaming keyboard compared to the control keyboard, which is a 2 millimeter and 60 gram actuation. As of writing this script, they have options for black, blue, brown, and red optical Gatoron switches. Now, I wanted to dive in and see how these switches worked, so I pried off a keycap, which has the cherry stems, and took a shot at pulling the switch out. It took a lot of force, and I mean, like, I was uncomfortable pulling that hard, but I persevered for science. Kind of as a little funny, weird side note, once I actually got the switch out, and I put everything back together, if I tried to pull the keycap off, it just pulls the switch out. So just be aware of that. Now, about the optical switches, the literature on Amazon says light strike optical switches utilize a horizontal infrared beam, which is transmitted across the width of the inner key switch. The infrared beam is normally blocked from reaching a sensor across from it by the stem. Once a switch is pressed, the switch stem no longer blocks the infrared beam, and the beam is detected by the sensor, which activates the switch. So after messing with the switch for a bunch, that is partially correct. I spent a while being actually pretty frustrated trying to figure out where the IR beam would actually like shoot through once I pressed the switch down. In fact, it's the entire opposite. There is a horizontal beam, yes, but it passes through this bottom stem and gets blocked by the switch when it's pressed. It's not the biggest deal, but I was like flipping out trying to understand what they meant and how it worked. As far as the switches go, they're pretty standard red switches, linear, pretty light, but they're heavy enough that I didn't like really mispress them just by resting my fingers on the keys. They sound like generic red switches too. Take a listen here. Not sure if you could hear it, but there was a little bit of resonant ring when hitting those keys. The stabilizers aren't amazing, but again, at this price, can't really expect too much. What I am thinking of doing is taking the whole thing apart, lubing up the switches, modding the stabilizers to see if I can make it better sounding. Let me know in the comments if you'd actually like to see a video on that, especially considering I've never done any of that before. Now, I can't really say this has helped improve my gaming. The biggest thing I noticed was I may have been able to react a little bit faster because the actuation is lighter and shorter than my current keyboard. Obviously, it didn't really help with my aiming because that's, you know, on the mouse hand. I would say it reduced finger fatigue a little bit, maybe, I guess. Overall, I really like the keyboard. It's a great price point to dip my toe into the 60% keyboard space and the optical switch waters as well. I do think it's a bit better for gaming for me, but I have to really figure out if the benefits are worth either, you know, replacing my current keyboard entirely, which I probably won't since I need those arrow keys and other functions at the ready for work when I work from home, or if I'm okay with unplugging the control and then plugging this in every time I want to play some games. I'm rotating back and forth right now, but who knows what I'll actually land on doing. But I really do like it. At just under $50 when I bought it, it's a pretty inexpensive way to get a feel for mechanical switches, or a less expensive way to see if you like Gatoron optical switches at least. It's not a bad way to practice, you know, modding a keyboard either. It's way cheaper than screwing up a, let's say, $200 keyboard. Ultimately, I think this is a great buy if you're in the market for like a 60% mechanical board. It's inexpensive, built decently well, and gives you the option of swapping switches or doing all sorts of other mods. So check it out. So thanks for watching, everybody. If this review was helpful, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. If you only use custom built keyboard that requires like hours of soldering, more power to you. I'm just really bad at soldering. Either way, let us know in the comments below if you want to see me try and mod this keyboard or what keyboard you're using on the daily, and we'll catch you in the next one.